Hello, ladies and gents. I'm RN Glenn, aka Nurse Dad, former Navy Hospital Corpsman, current ER nurse, and host of the Nurse Dad podcast, available on YouTube and Spotify, and soon Apple Podcasts. And my guest today, I'm very excited to announce, is Stephanee Beggs. Stephanee, thank you for appearing on this podcast.
Yes, of course. Thank you for having me.
I learned because I was researching you. I knew you were a
hmm
nurse, but you're a nurse in the emergency department, a
Yes.
fellow ER nurse.
Yep.
How long have you been doing that for?
I have been a nurse for 5 years. I started in emergency department, so I've known nothing else. I started as a new grad in emergency department, and yeah, 5 years now.
That's excellent. I
hmm
started in a step-down ICU in West Philly because I had gone to Drexel University on the GI Bill, and I thought I was going to settle there. Step-down ICU, it was okay, but
hmm
when I got to the emergency department, especially having a background in military medicine, I loved the pace of it.
Oh, for sure. That's one of the things I love about it too, is like the fast pace. You never see two of the same thing. Everything is, it's organized chaos, as they call it. I
Yeah.
love that. And I thrive in that environment. So I've always known emergency. I don't think I could ever do step down ICU, although credit to everybody who can, because
Yeah. Oh,
that
not knocking anything.
that's a
Just
whole
that you have
different
to,
world.
you realize nursing as you continue onward is as much about personality and fitting
hmm Oh,
something
yeah.
into your personality.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And you find where you fit, I feel like.
I'm big on camaraderie. That's one thing I really miss about
hmm
being a Navy Hospital Corpsman. And when I got to the ED, I felt a lot more connected to those
hmm
old themes, so to speak, of camaraderie. And I was in Queens in 2020 when COVID hit and everything became so, it was like being on a deployment with
hmm
everybody. And I just really, as hard as it was, I enjoyed that camaraderie, that level of camaraderie from
Definitely.
all my peers.
Definitely.
We could be two seasoned nurses having a good conversation
Yes.
about patient advocacy, because there's the
Oh, yeah.
nursing school version, and then there's, like anything else, once you get to the floor, what
It
works, what
is.
doesn't work.
Yes, it's a 180 from nursing school for sure. They can only teach you so much. And I feel like, especially with advocacy, you learn that on the job. You can't really teach somebody
No.
that. You can teach, obviously, what is right and what is wrong. But when you get onto the job, you're put in these situations with patients or with difficult coworkers or difficult higher up staff or something. And I feel like that's when you learn how to advocate and what works for you and what might not work for you and the type of person that you are and the type of nurse that you are. Yeah.
Yeah, 'cause in nursing school, you can give people case studies, and they are helpful,
Yeah.
but when you're face to face with a unique individual, you can't teach something like
It
that.
is harder to, it's, what's that saying? You'll learn better than I'll teach you. Or there's like a saying like that where it's
I know what you're
advocacy.
saying.
Yeah,
Yeah.
advocacy. There's only so much you can teach about it. You have to experience it yourself to learn how to do that.
And I want to get ahead of myself because I want to first talk about what you do and your book.
hmm
If I do want, we're going to return to advocacy. I also want to talk about how we as nurses, we advocate, but we don't always win. And that's a whole another
Yes.
level of nurse coping and important things I want to talk about. But I'm
Yes.
transfixed by your trajectory because I'm sorry if I'm looking at my notes.
Oh, you're fine.
My kids were like a whirlwind this morning, so my thoughts, but I'm transfixed by your trajectory because it seems like you're maximizing your career.
Yeah.
You have RNExplained,
hmm
which I'm really just taken aback by how many services you offer, goods and
hmm
services. I was looking at your just like IV, the video for
Yeah.
get IVs, and taking the extra step, like you're offering a
Yeah.
video, and then it's
hmm
also worth CE credits,
Yes.
like going the extra mile. And that seems to be a theme in everything that you're doing. Like I'm looking at your NCLEX study bundle, and like
hmm
this isn't just because there's a lot of people out there who are offering products on the fly, I feel like. But your
Yeah.
stuff is really up to par. And I can see
Yes.
that you really took the time to set up
Oh, yeah.
RNExplained. Really impressive, I have to
Thank
say.
you.
And I am going to check out your book Debrief as soon as I can. I was
Yay.
looking at the back of it, and that's when one of the recurrent themes with you, and it's mentioned the back of the book, is patient advocacy.
hmm Yeah, it's
What
huge.
have you always been a writer? It's
Oh,
something that
no.
I've always loved, reading and writing. No, you just
No.
fell into it.
Okay, so the book, the whole writing a book, I have no background in writing. When I was young, I used to write like little fictional
Yeah.
stories for fun and I'd read them to my neighbors and stuff, but that's the extent of like my writing. So when it came time to the idea of a book, I always said, all growing up, I always said, I'm going to write a book because no one listens to me. No one listens to me. And if I have a book, someone will think it's really good and they'll listen to me. And it was like a running joke forever. And I remember I had posted something on Instagram again because no one listened to me. And I was like, I'm going to write a book. And then that was the most recent time that I had said that. And then I thought to myself, why don't I just do it? Like, why don't I bite the bullet and just write it? I had always had, since the beginning of becoming a nurse, I wrote down in my notes app things that I would write about if I had a book, not thinking I'd ever do it, but I had literal chapters written out of this is what I would talk about. This patient stuck with me. This is the name of the chapter title and like all these things. And I always had that in my phone, never thinking that it would actually be something. And then one day I was like, you know what? I'm just going to bite the bullet and write the book. Like, I'm just going to do it. And so I took my notes app and put it into book form, wrote it the best I could. Yeah.
I always find that a lot of times we're pushing ourselves to achieve our goals, but that magical thing is the one that pulls you toward it. It seems like you had that moment where it was time. What circumstances were happening that caused that?
I think it was the constantly going back to that note in my notes app and seeing all the things that I had written down that I would have loved to expand on or tell somebody about or write about. And the culmination of that, plus I think being on night shift, that is like a whole different world that nobody knows about. Unless you have been in a night shift shoes, you don't know it. The rest of the world has no idea what's going on when they sleep. And I found that so fascinating. And I think that was the push where I was like, you know what? I want to write about this. And a lot of my stories come from night shift, working as night shift. And that kind of pushed me to be like, I want to write about this because I don't think people really realize that this is going on or this is what we're going through. And yeah, that was like, okay, I'm going to actually like write this.
My first 2 years as a ER nurse in Queens, it was night shift. And then I said, yeah, I had 2 kids and I'm like, all right, no more. It doesn't really work into my schedule. And then I became a local travel nurse, and there's this hospital 10 minutes from my house. And I really liked the hospital, and there was a 2-month contract for night shift, and that's what I'm doing now. And the night shift doesn't get a lot of credit because we're obviously daytime creatures. First off, no team is stronger than the night shift crew. Is that? And though perhaps there are less patients, it's still pretty busy, pretty consistent. And yeah, there are opportunities like what you're saying to maybe take notes and to pay attention more to what you're doing.
Learn new things.
Yeah. And in some ways you actually get more done in your private life. 'Cause I'll leave and I'll go to the gym and yeah, sure, I'm getting back a little later and I'm a little bit more tired, but I'm just very intentional with what I'm trying to get done when I am up. I'm sorry, I just lost my thought. That night shift. You threw me with that night shift comment, that fellow night shifter.
Yeah.
You've been doing that the whole 5 years?
No, I've only done it a little less than 2 years. And then I was like, okay, I need to switch it up because it was hard for my whole, just like having the lifestyle of night shift is really hard mentally, physically, all of that. But it's funny because when I thought about always writing a book and I wrote out these chapters and I would spitball things with the physicians during night shift and we talk about this, writing this book, my thought on the name of the book was always going to be, for years, I thought I want it to be When the World Sleeps, Stories of a Night Shift Nurse, because all of my stories at the time were about night shift. And I just thought that whole concept was so fascinating of as the world sleeps, people are dying, people are coding, people are having heart attacks, people are having strokes, and like it's crazy that the world doesn't see that. And so I wanted to write the book called When the World Sleeps, Stories of a Night Shift Nurse. But then I switched to day shift. I did mids for a little bit, all these other stories. And I was like, okay, that title doesn't really make sense now because they're not all night shift stories. So I cut that title. But a lot of the stories in the book are from night shift. And yeah, that was like the fascination with it, is that no one really sees what it takes to be a night shift nurse or what we go through.
Mid-shifts are nice. You get to sleep in a
Oh, I
little
love
bit. You're there a
it.
little later, but
I love it. Yeah.
um,
As long as I'm going to bed when when it's still fine. I love a mid shift. I always tell people like it's a happy medium between and days you get all that management. Mids, you get some management there, but then you get like the nighttime that's not, no one's there and it's like kind of nice and chiller. But yeah,
Toni Morrison, a great African-American writer, she first published her book at age 39, and her reason, she said, was there just wasn't a book like the book I wanted to write. It seems
yes.
there's a little bit of that in your story.
So true. Yes, that's a perfect way to put it. I don't think I've ever seen a book that, let alone talks about real patient stories, because the whole HIPAA, I was very careful with the way that I wrote these stories and whatever for that reason. But because of that, you don't see a lot of stories like that or books like that out there. We also, and this is obviously the concept of the entire book, is debriefing. And I
Mhm.
feel like anybody takes the time to debrief enough. And yeah, there's no book out there that I've seen that people are debriefing or are learning and writing it out for others to learn from or read about and relate to, and then debrief their own kind of similar stories or
As you
experiences.
speak, I'm trying not to chuckle because it's so true. It's just
So
in a
true.
not a funny way, just yeah, we need to do so much more in many
Oh, yeah.
ways. And it's like I can either chuckle or tear up sometimes.
Yeah. Literally.
Um, Debrief. We'll have a link for those watching or listening. We'll have a link below for Debrief.
Yes.
I wanted to get back to patient advocacy. I do have a few things I wrote up on that. Oh, by the way, you're in California.
I
I'm
am.
jealous. I feel like my medical start was there because I was attached to the Marine School of Infantry as a Navy Hospital Corpsman on Camp
Yeah.
Pendleton.
Yeah.
And despite the fact that we live in two high tax states, it's a beautiful state, California.
Yes, it is.
Are you in Southern California? Is
I
that
am.
where?
I'm in Los
Okay.
Angeles. It is, I absolutely love it. I was born and raised here. I lived in San Francisco, like Bay Area for a little bit, but always brings you back to LA. And the weather right now is perfect. It's not too hot. It's like
Yeah.
a little overcast right now. So we're good.
When I was there, because it was a pretty rigorous job that I had, but I was lucky enough to have the weekends off.
Mm.
I would say you can't feel too stressed when you're looking at a palm tree. I just
No,
can't.
or the ocean.
Before getting back at the patient advocacy, I wanted to ask you, what made you become a nurse? What was the inspiration?
Oh man, you know what's funny is when people ask me this question, I feel like I did not have a aha moment where I was a child and experienced something and I said, I'm going to be a nurse. Like I never had that. I actually went to school prior to do business marketing.
Okay.
I've lived 9 lives. I went to
Those make
school,
the best nurses. They make the
right?
best nurses, like the later in life nurses, which is
They
a lot of them,
Yes, and that also is something that's not talked about enough too, which I think is
myself
like,
included.
yeah, which I think is really a good thing to talk about. But so I went to school originally to do business marketing. I got my degree in business marketing. I worked in corporate America. And in that time, I had wanted to switch my major to something in healthcare. I sat on it for a while, decided that nursing, I love, this is cliche, but like taking care of people, obviously. But I truly, like, nothing grosses me out. I'm always like the mom of the group growing up. Like I had those characteristics, but I never acted on them. And I come from a family of entrepreneurs, so I just thought that business marketing was the way to go. So I did that, always thought about wanting to switch to something in healthcare, never did. And then when I worked in corporate America, I was like, you know what? I don't like this. I don't like the cubicle life. So I was like, I need to do something that I love. And I went back to school for nursing. At the time, my mom was diagnosed with stage 4 gallbladder cancer, as random as that is. And that, I would say, was not the reason I went into nursing, but it confirmed this is what I wanted to do. So I feel like all of those, that whole culmination and just like my characteristics, my personality growing up, that experience I had trying out corporate America, knowing that I didn't like it, then I went back to nursing and I really found me in nursing.
And you caught a glimpse, maybe more than a glimpse, with oncology through your mother.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And huge, like, kudos to people that can do oncology. I could never. It would crush my heart. Like,
Yeah.
it's definitely not for the weak, but my assistant actually is an oncology nurse and she's incredible. She, like, I don't know how she does it. It's great.
One of the surprises I had when you become a nurse, I was stunned in the ED by just how many oncology patients you receive. A
Oh,
lot of
yeah.
people just because the pain won't go away.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
you accessing ports and getting to know them. I've said if I leave the ED, maybe PACU, probably
Mm,
oncology. I feel a lot more comfortable with oncology just by being an ER nurse.
yeah, that's actually a good transition, I would say, from ER. Because, yeah, we do get a handful of patients too, and having to access ports like in the ER too, and things like that. Yeah, I agree.
Patient advocacy, such as on a minor level, calling CAT scan again, despite the fact that somebody 10 minutes ago told you that they're packed. That's a minor example. It could be pulling the doctor out of the room when
Hmm.
that CAT scan comes back and there's brain bleed and the doctor could be busy, but or adhering to your triage when someone says, "Hey, the CFO's uncle's here for athlete's foot. Can you maybe not go into that room?" The urinary retention guy who's screaming and maybe just see the athlete's foot first. Like, no,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
it's the system's a conveyor belt. And I'm not knocking that because it does keep everything moving forward,
Hmm.
especially in the emergency department. But like a grocer who's taking items off that conveyor belt, you come across a patient, and that's exactly what you have to do. You're moving along, but now something that requires specific individualized care comes along. And now you got to take that person off the conveyor belt. And I think a lot of new nurses don't realize that sometimes you're staring the system right in the face. I don't want to say push back on, but sometimes it could feel like that.
Yeah.
Sometimes you feel like you're putting on your boxing gloves to try to
Oh,
advocate for
for sure.
somebody.
Yeah.
And also, you don't win all the time.
No, you don't. Yeah.
And they never talk about that. They characterize it in school like you're going to advocate for a patient and the right thing will be done for that patient in terms of what you believe, because
Mm-hmm.
maybe a physician or someone else doesn't believe that's the right path. And that's their professional opinion. And you have your professional opinion, but you still have to deal with
Yeah.
that outcome
Yeah.
emotionally. And I think that contributes somewhat to the numbers that we see in terms of nurse burnout and compassion fatigue. We talk about compassion fatigue. Oh, you're taking care of a lot of people. You're emotionally attached sometimes and it can hurt. But also those failures of advocacy, at least from your perspective, that also weigh. And that's often not talked about.
No, I agree.
I know a story that I have is one of the things I'm not that I have my criticisms are is like how we treat elderly people as a society. I'm not talking
Mm-hmm.
about medicine. People are just more dismissive when it comes to the elderly. And I remember I was at a hospital system, very well known, and I had an elderly patient come in. I think she was like actually 102, and she's being taken care of by her family, but she actually had some gangrene on her limb. And when I went to touch her, it could have been from fright, but the way she moved, it was almost like she was just really terrified.
Yeah.
And is it from fright or is she being abused? She's here with gangrene. My mind is not really aimed toward as much toward fright. I That was something I went right to my charge about. I tried to advocate for this patient, but ultimately I failed and that hurt. That was my first real glimpse of trying to do the right thing and it didn't work out.
Yep.
Another situation that was a surprise when I was a new emergency department nurse was we had a 16-year-old give birth in the shower. She hid her pregnancy for the first time I lost a newborn in a code, but it activated a system in place where we're going to investigate whether or not this is a product of incest. And I didn't even think about something like that. Like I said, I was new.
Yeah.
And that's a form of advocacy we don't think about.
Definitely. There's
And
so many layers.
that situation, just because of the outcome of the newborn, was enough emotionally. And
Mm-hmm.
now you have to add on the possible incest on top of that.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot. It's a lot that novice nurses might not be considering.
I agree.
Do you have any story that might be in the
Oh
book
man.
or not in the book? Doesn't have to
Um,
be long, just
yeah, I have I have a
well,
hands
I know you
of
have
that type.
yeah,
I have
yeah,
tons that type
tons.
of advocacy where sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't in the nurse's favor. And bouncing off yours with like where you advocate for more than just the care, but now you're thinking beyond the care into the family life. Is there neglect? Is there abuse? Is there things like that? I've had kids come in who have very odd injuries and you have to advocate for making sure that are they safe at home, or who is bringing them in? Do they feel safe with them? And having that type of advocacy of where you're thinking more beyond just the current condition is something that I don't think a lot of people realize is a part of the nurse's scope, is to think of all aspects of the patient and not just in that current. So you want to make sure with these kids, are they safe at home? Do they feel safe at home? Is there anything going on? And having to advocate for that. And sometimes it's just my own worry for them. So I advocate in that way. And there really is nothing wrong. And then you think, dang, did I take that too far? Or was I overthinking something? But I feel like as a nurse, you almost have to, you're doing it for the benefit of your patient, and to not, at the end of it, whether the outcome is in your favor or not in your favor, your advocacy matters. And like sometimes I feel like new nurses are afraid to overstep, or they're afraid to feel dumb if they bring something up that's not actually the case going on, like some sort of abuse or something like that. Like that's the best example I could think of.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and they feel like dumb if they were to bring that up, when in reality, like I feel like that's a good nurse. That's the nurses that I would want taking care of me and my kids, future kids. I don't have kids right now, but future kids one day. And even there's a story in my book, one of my chapters, that I talk about a patient I had that had a very crazy transfusion reaction at home, but we didn't know it at the time. And she was declining in the ER. And I was the only one that was there to witness this, right? As nurses are the ones that are at the bedside the most. And to see that, to have that mental battle of how am I going to push for what I think is right for this patient? No one else is seeing what I see, and I have to advocate. I am her biggest advocate right now because she can't speak for herself. And learning as a new grad how to advocate even when the entire team does not listen to you, extremely hard for me. And that was the moment in the book where I talk about advocacy the most, and how I learned that in that moment, nothing else mattered but that patient in front of me. I didn't care about ego. I didn't care about the hierarchy of the team. All I cared about was what I saw in this patient and what I knew needed to happen, and I was going to make that happen no matter what. Yeah, and that...
I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
No. But I was about to say, because you had marketing experience, but more important, you had experience dealing with fellow employees and issues that came up as someone who was working in marketing that could translate into nursing, as opposed to someone who just comes from right out of school into the profession and has to learn from scratch. You already had a leg up in talking to people, I'm sure.
Yes, I did. I don't know how much that translated, though, into this new field that I was in, just because when you're new as a nurse and speaking to people that are above you, and that's so scary. No matter how much I feel like experience you have, you feel incompetent until you gain that confidence in yourself and your knowledge and your skill to say something and not care what they think. So that's how I was. I was nervous. I was nervous to speak up or say these things or advocate for my patients because out of fear that I was going to be shut down, that someone wasn't going to take my recommendation, that I'd look stupid, or I went overstepped or way too into it or something like that. Until that patient that I had where I was like, none of this matters. I don't care what anybody thinks about me. I don't care about my ego, your ego, the hierarchy of people. And that's when I learned how to advocate, was that moment.
When you're new, you're more dependent on the system because you don't know anything. It's like that conveyor belt imagery. You need that conveyor belt. You don't know anything. You're lost at sea. That's why we give new nurses preceptors, and a lot of the new training I've seen as long as 6 months with a preceptor, and I totally support that. So how do you advocate when you might not understand what to advocate for, or you're just really dependent on everything flowing a certain way and not steering too far off the path that you were taught in school because it's
Yeah.
safe for you.
Yeah.
But then as you get older or you get more experience and you really understand how the system works, you're able to just see between the lines and be able to better ensure, hopefully, that someone doesn't slip through the cracks. And I don't want to characterize our advocacy as like a huge failure rate. Most of the time, I've been
No.
very successful in advocating. And,
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
whether it's dramatic, like we once had in Queens, we had a woman come in claiming chest pain. She came in by ambulance. She had her daughter in tow. And even in the code room, we could tell this husband is a little trying to answer the questions for her, things like that. Long story short, the other nurse knew but to separate them. Sure enough, as soon as the husband was out of the room, she apologized and said, "I'm sorry, I don't have chest pain, but he beats me, he beats my daughter, and I don't know what to do."
Yeah.
Or it could be the other night, there was a elderly patient. She had given herself 13 units of insulin when her blood sugar was 140 with her pump
Oh.
on accident. And it dropped from 140 and then to EMS 115. And as she got to me, it's 80. And I'm telling a resident, I'm just going to push the D50. It's like, let's give her some OJ. It's only at 80. I'm like, it's gonna drop. It's going to be like 30 and before you know it, he caved. I might have been a little, it's night shift. There's no one around. We're doing this. At the end of the day, it's my nurses know with advocacy. I'm sorry to cut you off.
No.
With advocacy, and shame on you, Stephanee, you're so nuanced in your answers. You're making my head go in 3 different directions. I have my notes here. No, but that's the other thing too with nursing. I had a nurse expert witness on the podcast, and you can be held responsible by doing something for a patient that the doctor ordered, that the doctor thought was safe, or if you don't advocate for your patient, going for like that order, if that didn't work and she bottomed down and I got busy and something happened to that patient, legally, I'm probably going down with
It's
that
on
shit,
you.
not the resident.
Yeah, exactly.
It's very reciprocal. I teach new nurses when it comes to like what are the majors and minors in charting or getting things done when you're busy. And I'm like, every major is connected to your license, because if they're here for hypotension and you're getting report and it hasn't been done in 2 hours and no one knows that they're like 60 over 20, you are going down.
Yes, it's
on
you.
You're going down.
Yeah.
And, so advocacy is not just for the patient, it's for everybody.
Yeah, it's exactly. No, it's to keep you safe too, and everything that you worked so hard for to get to where you are. Yeah, and I just think through all of no one can teach you how to do this. You have to experience these hard moments where you're put in a situation where you have nothing you can do but advocate for your patient, or what you think is right. And that's when your ability to advocate gets better and your confidence grows. And I think those two go tandem, hand in hand, is when you experience these things and your confidence grows, your advocacy grows as well, because you know that something's right. Like you with the insulin, or you with the you said D50, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like you with the D50, it's
I'm not giving OJ for a situation like that.
Exactly.
I'm gonna give something.
And over time too, I've noticed, like when I am in a code with the entire team, or there is a patient that is crashing or whatever, because of my confidence that I've built and with my experience and my ability to advocate, sometimes doctors or physicians, whoever you're working with, turns to me now to say, what do you think we should do?
You elevate everyone's game.
Yeah, and it all works in tandem and through time and experience. That's why I like tell new nurses, I'm like, just give it time. I promise you, you'll get there. You'll learn how to advocate, and you'll learn like your confidence and find your confidence and your voice if you just give it time.
That's a great piece of advice for young nurses or just new nurses, because some of the new nurses have gray hair like I did, is give it time. Don't put so much pressure on yourself. But at the same time, I will say, I'm not going to say this is ageist or something, but when you are older, like 35 or 40, and you become a nurse, people do expect you to know.
Yes.
Like a 24-year-old nurse or 27, that, that sheen on the skin, it gives them a little bit more leeway. But when you've got wrinkles and gray hair, it is a little tougher to find that balance. You got to remind people. Like I would suggest, remind people, I just graduated.
Yeah, like I'm new.
Yeah. That happened to me in the military. I got in at 28 and everyone expected me. And as a corpsman, you're trained to do crikes and chest
Mm-hmm.
tubes, the suturing, and now you have all this training, and you're like, I don't know if I'm confident right now to do a needle D, but they look at you like, you're 30 years old. Come on.
We had a colleague in my new grad cohort that also came from the military, like, experience background. And he was a little bit older, but big guy. He was a teddy bear. Like, I looked to him whenever I had a combative patient, or if there was somebody that was trying to elope, I'd be like, please go, please handle this. And it was funny because you're so right. And I've never actually thought about that, is the older, or like the people who come from a previous background in something, do have a little bit of a disadvantage in that way, where you walk in and people automatically think, oh, they've been a nurse for 20 years. Like,
Yeah.
I'm going to go to that, and
I've
like,
fallen for it.
yeah,
I've fallen for
me
it.
too.
How long
Oh,
you
me
been a
too.
nurse for? Oh, 53
Like,
years
oh,
old.
you're
I did
new?
like 4 years ago. It's
Yeah,
wow.
like, you're a new grad? Yeah, so I never thought about that. That's so funny.
But my recommendation for all of you out there is just tell them. If you get the most understanding from people in the medical profession, nurses especially, they will understand. They want to
Yeah.
know, because especially if they're working with you.
Exactly. And I almost respected the people that I was working around that I might not have been too familiar with, and I didn't know how experienced they were. Some of them were very experienced. Some of them had less experience than me at the time. And when they just said, hey, listen, I have no idea what I'm doing, or don't ask me that because I don't know the answer to that,
Yeah.
I respected that so much more. And it actually, like, it made me view them so much better when you're just straight up and just honest about it.
In terms of combative patients in Queens, I don't know what the code was that they would call it. Obviously, it meant security, but then, especially in the night shift, sometimes they would just say manpower to bed 29, manpower. That meant like, we can't find anybody.
Yeah.
Basically, Glenn, get over there.
Yeah.
Who was the other male nurse? Like, manpower. It's like,
That's so
that
funny.
meant just drop what you're doing. Someone is like swinging, and nobody is there to protect them.
Yep. You need all the
It
men and all the
happens.
security.
It happens.
Yeah.
What do you think about that? I worked with a nurse, like in terms of violence. I worked with a nurse, and she had her neck broken.
Oh my
And
gosh.
yeah, and she had her medical leave, but eventually when she got back, it just didn't work out. She got fired. But you're an emergency department nurse. What are you seeing? Because I'm seeing escalation, and I feel like doubling down by the system. I know a male nurse, he wouldn't, like you said, he was a teddy bear. I was told, I never met him, but he was being attacked. The guy was pummeling him, like just swinging, and he was down on the ground, and he punched the guy off of him and ran. Didn't stick around, but ran. And he got fired. And there's another hospital I worked with where a security guard put his hands on a patient who was actively attacking him to restrain him until the police got there. And he was 6 months suspended without pay. So the message is pretty clear.
It's not in our favor.
What's your take?
Yeah, it's not in our favor. And I think that so needs to be addressed, and more advocacy for us as healthcare professionals and the things that we have to endure. We need to get better at that. I don't think it's ever acceptable. And sometimes I feel like the hospital, the medical system, or healthcare, I almost feel like they think of combativeness or escalation of things is like a case by case, where you have the patient that is extremely disoriented and they go and they smack you, but it's okay because they're disoriented. Like, they don't know any better. I still don't think that's okay. And you could ask any nurse, and I feel like any nurse would be like, yeah, no, that's still, they don't get a pass for that. That's not okay.
Yeah.
And I think there needs to be more instances where we fight back, I would say, but not be penalized for that. I also had a
To defend yourself.
Yeah.
And I'm not coming down hard on patients with Alzheimer's or an active, I'm not going to say every psych patient, but some people just are not in their right state of mind, or someone who's, for whatever reason, has an altered mental status. But across the board, for me, most of the time, everyone has full capacity of their faculties. And literally a nurse could be pregnant, and if she's kicked in the belly by somebody, they're not even going to get penalized. It's just ridiculous what's out there.
I think there's so many layers to the abuse that we endure that needs to be fixed or addressed in that way. And I don't see anyone doing it right now, which is so unfortunate. I've
Yeah.
had coworkers who defend themselves to patients who literally have lunged out of the bed to punch them or hit them or scream at them. And out of defense, they push back, which it's so valid to be doing that. And they're fired. Like, they get fired within the week.
Yeah.
And I'm just, that's not okay. That's not
I'm a 250-pound man, and
Mhm.
I can only imagine the intimidation that someone, and again, it's everyone's different, males and females, but
Yeah.
I've taken report and the nurse has said, oh, he has tortured me all day.
Mhm.
And I go in there and I'm given that look like this is not going to happen on my shift, pal. And
Yeah.
a lot of times that's what it took. But
Yeah.
because she's what she is,
Mm.
this guy thinks he's going to just torture her the whole time, call her name, whatever it
Yeah.
is. And
Yeah.
it's just not right. It's not right. And when it comes to violence, if someone's punching you in the face repeatedly.
Mm.
That nurse punching out of there is more of a reaction, like a human reaction. It's not a conscious decision. You know, and nobody's
Yeah.
going to stand there and get attacked. Yeah,
Exactly.
they need to work out like a legal way, like case by case, where look, this person is ANO4.
Yeah.
They were violent for like anything with a police report. Who hit first? Who was saying
Mhm.
that? It's the same rules, just applied to the medical profession.
Yeah, and I think there's looking back in 5 years, I've only had one time where security has asked me in a moment when I have been hit, scratched, spit on, anything, any sort of violence, where security has asked me, "Do you want to press charges to this patient?"
Right.
And I've only had that once, and I feel like that says a lot about whose side are we on?
I watched a documentary about a missing person and the security of the ship got the ship's best interests. And the hospital security, they have a tough job. I actually did that for a couple of months in Camden, New Jersey, murder capital of the country, during nursing school one summer. And yeah, hospital, you're working for the hospital.
Yeah.
And the best interest in the hospital.
Yes. Yeah.
Now, I was looking at what you do, and you are clearly an athletic person. I take athletics. I try to take it as seriously as I can.
Yeah.
I've been working out since 1994 when I was 16. And the only thing that's really delayed me or affected my workouts is having children.
Yes.
But now they're old enough at 3 and 5, I can actually take them to the gym. And there's a great kids club there. And that's amazing for me. But I've always said to people, especially no matter what you do, like to stay fit, it forces you to stay fit in your mind, your
Yes.
soul. Have you always been into fitness? Because you are vocal about it. I mean, at least.
Yeah, I've always been into fitness. When I was younger, I used to run marathons and stuff. So I was always into that. Growing up in like college and on, I was into like weight training. I had a trainer for a while when I was a new grad. I had a trainer. My schedule was crazy. I would go to work 7 p.m. to 7 a.m., get home at 8 a.m., 8 a.m. to 12 or 12:30, I would sleep. That was my only window of sleep.
Yeah.
1 o'clock, I would meet with my trainer. 1 to 2:30, 3, I'd work out, come home, shower, eat, get ready for work, go back again. It was crazy. Yes, I was working out at that time, but it was not meaningful, I would say, because I was not prioritizing all aspects, sleep, like good workouts, eating right, all of that. Then I finally found my balance of meaningful workouts that worked best for me, that helped me physically, mentally, and really taking that time. I always prioritize, though, through all of this, is like, you have at least 1 hour you can take to yourself, at least 1 hour, whether that be a workout or watching your favorite show or something for you, your version of self-care. You can take 1 hour of the day to do that. And that 1 hour does wonders, I feel like. That mentality is what I've adopted. Is sometimes I don't want to work out, but I do it anyway because I'm like, okay, I can just do 1 hour this. And truly it has helped me physically, mentally, emotionally, with my work, in all aspects of my work, like everything, every part.
I was watching some Hulk Hogan videos because obviously he passed yesterday, and he mentioned something with hurts me. I grew up on Hulkamania.
Right?
Hulk Hogan is dead, but Hulkamania lives. But he had said something that Schwarzenegger told him that was very helpful for him. He said, even if you think you're going to have a bad workout, you don't want to go, because it's
Yes.
still good
You
for you. I feel very strongly about that. Just
getting
getting
out the
there
door.
is
Yeah.
still better than not going at all.
Yeah. And I feel like no one will regret a workout.
You don't.
Yeah.
And you feel great afterwards, and you feel
Mhm.
great about yourself, not just about working out, but just sweating out whatever you need to sweat out.
Yeah.
I had a moment in nursing school where it was microbiology, the prereq, and it was,
God.
I love biology, but it was a lot of work. And I realized that as I was getting further along in nursing school, I didn't know how I was going to maintain my workout schedule and
Mhm.
study to the degree that I needed to. It
Yeah.
was a real crisis for me because, especially at the time, I'm like, I've been training most of my life, and now what? In my mid 30s, I'm going to stop. I need it more now more than ever.
Yeah.
I started printing out the PowerPoints, and I said, if I go to the gym, I'm going to read PowerPoints, even if I don't have a
Mhm.
test. And I found that just reading it, I learned like a third of the information, and I read between sets, and people would see me with the packets and look at this guy. And I just, instead of going on the phone, instead of doing anything, it was just reading. If I wasn't working out, I
Yeah.
was reading. And that's how I fused the two. Not to put a shameless plug, but I do offer a free guide on my website, mynursedad.com, for study tips, because I do feel like people shut down their life in college. They don't do
I
any of the
know.
hobbies that they want to do. And it breaks my
No.
heart
Yes.
because they're so
Yes.
stressed more than ever. And then I'm not
They lose
knocking
themselves.
medication, but some people think that the only alternative is to take meds, and which again, some people need it. That's great. I'm glad they have it. But there's a lot that can happen. Like, one of my rules was I didn't sit down when I started the study process until I
Mm.
had a grip on the material. When you're standing up and not letting yourself sit down, you're going to study better.
You'll do anything to remember
You know,
that so you could sit down.
yeah, exactly. So I just incorporated it. It was either fitness or studying. So I said, let's do both at the same
Yeah.
time. Like,
And
how do
yeah, and
I?
I feel like that's goes hand in hand with exactly why I tell people you can spend at least 1 hour of your day to yourself. It will translate in all other aspects of your life if you just dedicate yourself to that 1 hour.
What do you
Yes.
think about this? This is my opinion. I don't prefer the term like weight loss. I would rather
Yeah.
we talk about toning. I feel like
Yeah.
so many people who want to get into shape, and not even athletic shape, just losing love handles or the underarm. I would, instead of talking about weight loss, let's talk about engaging our muscles and weight resistance. Rather, I think 45 minutes of weight training is so much better than 45 minutes of cardio. And that, again, that's my opinion. I'm not an expert, but
Mm.
I find that you get a lot more results that last longer. Like, you break down your muscles, and even when you're not working, the microfibers are repairing and you're burning calories. And I just find that you get so much more out of focusing on toning than on weight loss. I don't know if 45 minutes on the elliptical is better than 45 minutes on 5 or 6 free weight machines.
Mhm.
I think the weight training works a lot better, at least for me.
Yeah, I've been trying to figure that out for my own self too. I feel like everybody obviously may have their own what works best for them.
Of course.
And I felt like when I did my weight training, I was more inflamed, like inflamed than I've ever been. And then when I cut back on that a little bit and started prioritizing more low intensity things, low intensity workouts, that's when I noticed the weight. And I know it wasn't about weight loss, but the weight was dropping like crazy. I was no
Yeah.
longer inflamed. I did not have my moon face. Like, it was so different. But I think that's what worked for my body type. Whereas like others, sometimes like I have one of my best friends is like die hard weight training, and she looks dang good doing that. And yeah, so I just feel like it's different for everybody. I like to say it's a lifestyle change more than
Mhm.
you're doing this for weight loss or doing this for XYZ. I like to change the mentality of you're changing your lifestyle just for the
Yeah.
better. And I like that.
I say train like you're training for a sport. If you really want to see results and lose weight, think about training for a sport. Are you going
Mhm,
to consume as much alcohol as you are, or are you going to take off 3 days in a row? You're not going to perform on Saturday morning, whether it's soccer or football or
mhm.
wrestling
Yeah,
or whatever that sport is. If you're taking off Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, maybe going out Saturday night,
yeah,
it's like you really need to treat it as if you're not, you don't have to be an sport or a varsity player even, but just pretend that you're in some kind of sport and you have that game on the weekends and what you need to do to prepare for it. Save
Yeah.
maybe the treats till after the game as a reward, that kind of mentality.
And get out what you put to it.
Mhm. Yeah, and the
For
whole
sure.
thing with the language of weight loss, you have the GLP-1s, which are great for a lot of people, but
Mhm.
what are we doing to tone? We got to retain muscle. We
Yeah.
have to, especially as you get older
Yeah.
with the venous system, we need lean muscle. Has to bring that blood back to the heart. Great. We have the GLP-1s. Haven't been able to lose weight. Now you can lose
Yeah, it's a
weight.
good aid, but it's not
But
a
if we're talking about toning, then we're also going to include, hey, what are we doing for muscular development?
yeah.
How much protein are we eating? So if we're just
Yeah.
talking about weight loss, we look at the scale and we think, oh, we're great. It's like, but you might have lost a lot of lean muscle that you
Yes.
need. You might not be on, like you were telling, like saying, like a culture or like a mentality change. Are you on that bandwagon
Mhm.
of maintaining these results
Mhm.
rather than, oh, it's the weight loss. And if I gain more, I'll just go back on and I'll lose more weight.
Yeah.
We got to change the way we
Change the
engage.
mentality. Yeah. I agree.
So I'm just gonna thank you for this, and just offline, thank you so much for doing this.
Oh,
I
Of
know this
course.
isn't a huge channel or anything. I'm growing, but it's not a huge channel. It really says a lot about you because I saw that you weren't a guru. I could see that you're very involved and invested in what you
Yeah.
do. You exemplify what you say, which is
Mm.
great. The fact that you agreed to do this, I really appreciate that. I can't wait to read the book. I love the concept
Yay.
of it. It inspires me because I'm working on one myself, and I love successful people. Like some people, they feel they get a certain way about other people's success, a real negative road. I'm like, the more people that are successful, the more people that are able to achieve success, the better we're all going to be.
And I talk about that in my book too, that we all can learn from each other's successes and mistakes. So why are we not utilizing that? There's room for everybody at the top. Probably the first chapter of my book.
Schwarzenegger doesn't call himself a self-made man because of all the
Mhm.
support and help he's had. We think that someone like you who have RNExplained and
Mhm.
your book and many other things, I'm sure you utilize your support network, the people who want to help you or people who are just there for you. That's something
Yeah.
that took me 10 years, maybe even longer to learn. And like in my 20s, I did not engage anybody who was willing to help me. And I find that
Mhm.
some people just need to have the courage and
Yeah.
humility to accept that and to
Mhm.
realize that we're the sum of our parts.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Stephanee, for doing this. I wish you a lot of luck.
Yay. Thank
There'll
you.
be links to everything in the description. RNExplained.com. That's your
Yep.
website.
Yep.
And your book, Debrief.
You can buy it on my website. If you buy it on my website, I hand ship them. So you get stickers, bookmarks, little thank you inserts. But it also is available on Amazon. So if you want it immediately tomorrow, you can buy it on Amazon. Amazon also has the Kindle version too. So yeah.
That's fantastic. Yeah, just even what you said about mailing it from home and including all those little
Yes.
extras. It seems like that's a recurrent theme in your
Yeah.
merchandise and what you do. There's always little personal touches on everything, which
Ex-
I appreciate.
Yeah.
But thank you so much. You have a great California day out there,
Thank you. Thank you. You too.
and we'll stay in touch. And I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Hello, ladies and gents. I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Stephanee. I had no idea until this morning that I would be talking to a fellow ER nurse. Like I had said before, you try to find a niche that speaks to you, amalgamates well with your personality, and for me, it's the ED. And a night shifter. I'm a former night shifter too. I'm just doing this contract right now. But I just wanted to remind everybody to please share, subscribe, and comment if you can. Helps the channel out against the algorithm. And it's really not about going viral or being popular on social media. I'm 44. What could I care? I just want good information to get out to those who need it. So please help me out. Please help those who may need this information get this information, and I'll be very appreciative of that. Please visit www.mynursedad.com. I had mentioned this earlier with Stephanee. If you fill out the pop-up, there is a 35-page free guide that covers a few things, including study tips that I developed in the military that allow you to maximize your time so that you can go for that high GPA, but also not give up on the things that you love, like your hobbies. There's also multitasking tips for nurses. And I wrote a little thing about what I feel is holding most people back. And it's something that Marines taught me. So go to mynursedad.com, fill out the pop-up, and receive that free guide. I also have a store on my website. My children's books that I've written, there's only two. One was a love letter to my daughter called Isabel Learns to Share, and the other one is Zach's Dad is Deployed. It's not just about the character Zach, it's all different children from different backgrounds coping with a parent who is deployed. If you are in the military or know someone in the military, check out that book. Thank you for watching the Nurse Dad podcast. Stay hungry, be humble. Nurse Dad out.